Today I fucked up by showing everyone at work how sweaty I was. This happened about a year ago. I was on my way to a meeting at work. I used to work in a very large hospital and the meeting was on the opposite side of the hospital to where my office was. It would take roughly 5 to 10 minutes to get there. The hospital was very, very large and I had not been to this particular part of it before. About halfway through my journey I got a bit lost and was sure I was going to be late. Once I found out how to get there I started slowly jogging to try and arrive in time. I had some papers with me that I needed to give out to everyone attending the meeting. I was carrying these under my arm to help me jog faster to the meeting I was now 5 minutes late for. It was one of the hottest days of the year and I was getting quite sweaty, so I decided to slow down a bit just before I got there. When I eventually arrived, there were about 15 to 20 people sitting around a fairly small table in front of me. I put the papers down in the middle and asked everyone to take a copy. As soon as I did, I heard someone chuckle. Looked down and saw that the part of the papers that had been under my arm had an extremely large and visibly wet sweat patch covering it. They were so wet that when I picked them back up they had left a wet patch on the table for everyone to see. The sheets had become stuck together with sweat and were ripping as I tried to pull them apart, which everyone was eagerly watching me do. After a short but painfully awkward silence, my manager eventually stood up and said that he would email everyone a copy. I then had to present in front of the same people. Doctor, I ran to a meeting at work with paper handouts under my arm. Attempted to hand out the papers with sweat patches on them. I get sweaty hands at work. Always a bit awkward when someone asks me to sign something and my hand sticks to it trying to pull it away. Just the idea of having to shake someone's hand makes my hands sweat profusely. On time I farted, real loud in a company meeting. It's all good. I did that hungover as fuck in a tiny conference room with my entire department. 13 people jammed into a room for 7, standing room only for the latecomers sort of situation. Well, my beer, whiskey, and late night Jimmy Dean frozen breakfast sandwich fart was so fucking rancid that I emptied the conference room within seconds. Even better, it was our first meeting with the new branch manager who was brought in to help transition our little branch into a bigger office as we were growing fast. After we bolted out of there my department manager said, "Who the fuck did that? If the language seems unusual, keep in mind we're tradesmen, we rarely did meetings in the office." Anyways, I proudly exclaimed it was me because honestly they probably already knew and I may as well be unflinchingly unapologetic about it. He sent me home sick for the day. Who chuckles at somebody sweating? Seriously? Anyway, I'm a woman who with a sweaty ass. I avoid seating in the subway from April to September in fear of having a weird sweat mark on my ass area. Sometimes, chairs are sweaty after I sit on them. This is not fun. I wear a lot of skirts, it kind of helps. It's just important not to think too much about the sweat rolling down your legs. I'm waiting for a normalized sweating Instagram post. I have hyperhidrosis. It is embarrassing to sweat all the time, but I got used to it. It's the body naturally cooling itself down, no need to be embarrassed. Try working as a clerk at the grocery store and trying not to sweat on people's groceries, rolling eyes face. Now I sell water pipes and other various items and walk around the store every day with a sweat rag and shorts on. I do this all year round. Embrace it, triumphant face. Keep hydrated, homie. I sweat really easily, like a few minutes of being outside when it's hot or just doing my cleaning duties at work. Walk around spraying glass and degreaser and Lysol on all of the arcade games and wiping them down is enough to cover my face. It's embarrassing, but Lord, I think I'd kill myself if I ever accidentally asked someone to touch something with my sweat on it. Today I fucked up by cleaning the bathroom. NSFW. First time poster, but I see many incidents that happened years ago, so I thought I'd share one. On mobile, so apologies for formatting. This was back in the early 2000s when I was a strapping young lad in college. I had been dating my high school sweetheart long distance since I was out of state in college, and she was back home with 1 year of school remaining. No sex until we were both 18. Long story short, she ended up moving down there for school, and broke up with me on Valentine's Day, over the phone. So, I'm ready to move on, and see what the dating world has to offer. I ended up dating a few girls casually, nothing serious, and gathered some more experience in terms of what girls liked in bed and what I liked. All of these times were safe, except for one. This girl I started seeing had a bit of reputation, but I'm not one to slut shame or anything like that, so we ended up doing the dance. Great time, nothing came of the relationship, move on. A few days later, as I was getting ready to go home for summer, I noticed a burning sensation when I peed. Immediately I freak out, thinking I caught something. My dad was a doctor, but I didn't feel comfortable with my dad checking me for STDs manually, so he got me in with another doctor. It was truly hell on earth explaining to my mother why I felt the need to see the urologist. I'm in the urologist office, pants down, dick being examined, only to be told, well son, I'm just glad you're getting some pussy, being assured that nothing is wrong STD wise. He did mention that it looked like I had been exposed to some chemical irritants. Turns out, I had been cleaning my dorm room bathroom with heavy duty cleaning supplies, no gloves, then proceeded to jack off without washing my hands thoroughly. Turns out Ajax is not the best thing to rub all over your dong. Too long didn't read, jacked off with bleach, thought I caught an STD. Edit, when I say first time poster, I mean like, ever on Reddit. I've posted replies on a couple of other subs when it was allowed, but I am almost positive I've never made a thread myself, and if I did, I've gotten nowhere near this amount of replies to answer. I'll try and answer the most common themes here though. The point of the post wasn't to be like lol I'm a turbo chat suck it virgins haha. I thought the backstory as to why I was sleeping around so much would help the point of the story's punchline, where I thought I caught a STD. Also, I grew up in the deep south, in a small rural town, hence the good old boy tone of the doctor. I'll try and get to some comments and answer, but there's def a lot. Well boys, we found him. The only non-virgin Redditor. Congrats on sex. Weird flex, has sex, Ajax, raw dicks. As soon as you said strapping young lad, I read the rest of your post in a British accent. At least you killed 99% of germs. Today I fucked up by playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And nearly having Child Protective Services called on my parents. Obligatory, this didn't happen today, but years ago, and too long didn't read, at the end. For context, back when let's call me Costly, was in high school, I wasn't exactly one of the popular girls. I was more of a tomboy slash geeky type who really only ever hung out with one friend. We'll call him Steve for this story. Anyway, Steve and I got along because we both enjoyed things other kids were too cool for, things like Yu-Gi-Oh!, which Steve introduced me to shortly after he discovered the show. He got really into it and decided to make me a deck so I could play with him. We're hooked. We played in homeroom, during lunch, and after school we would alternate between going to each other's houses so we could play. While other kids spent their money on whatever it is they did, we spent all of ours on boosters to keep games interesting and make the best deck possible. On one of the days where Steve and I were playing at my house, my little sister decided to watch us play. Since this was back before iPads existed, it wasn't unusual to have her pretty much shadow me all the time back then. Anyway, as the game plays out, I set up a trap card face down, which to anybody who's played before, is completely ordinary, but to a nosy little sister this looks absolutely wrong. Why is that one upside down? She demands to know. Well, because it's a surprise, I respond. Then when the time comes, I shout in my best impression of the show I could muster, "Fool! You have activated my trap card." Steve and I laugh as I flipped the card over and my sister sits there, puzzled. I guess it wasn't the surprise she expected. As Steve and I settle, but before we resume playing, "What's a trap?" my sister asks. "It's like a trick," Steve says, and we keep playing. My sister sat quietly and watched for a couple more minutes until she jumped down off her seat and wandered off. Steve and I finished playing and he went home and we forgot all about my sister's questions. Little did we know we had sown the seeds of fuck-uppery. The following weekend my parents were having my conservative, religious aunt over for lunch. But as my parents didn't really force me to do anything I didn't want to do, I told them I was going to play cards at Steve's, which was only a few blocks away. Evidently shortly after I left my parents' place my aunt arrived. She greeted everyone and sat at the table. Normal conversation ensued as everyone began to eat their lunch. "Where is Costly?" she asks, but before my mother could say anything, my sister shouts, "She's turning tricks with her friend Steve." Now, to any normal person this would clearly be the time to have an adult further explain what's happening, but my aunt, being her controlling and dramatic self, was instantly set off. About of huffing and puffing and well I never s. She accused my mother of teaching her daughter indecent concepts as she put it. Not letting my mom say a word, my aunt went so far as to threaten to call Child Protective Services. My mother laughed in her face and told her what was happening, but she still wasn't happy. I was at a boy's house. Too long didn't read, turned a trap card. My sister told my aunt I was turning tricks with a friend, she flipped. And this story was constructed as part of an experiment to further our collective understanding of gender's effect on the public's opinion of the user online. Edit. Alright, thank you all for taking part in my experiment. I was originally going to wait 24 hours before admitting that this story is 100% false. I am a man. I have never played Yu-Gi-Oh in my life. I am the youngest child. My aunts are pretty promiscuous themselves. My username is literally a costly man whore. But I am too tired to wait another couple of hours. My findings fit within the parameters of what was expected, though admittedly a lot less than I expected. I'll try again in a couple weeks. Thanks again everyone. Bruh, your aunt is a few cards short of the deck. Could you explain what turning tricks mean for a non-native speaker? I don't know this term or its meaning. She thought I was sucking his dick for his lunch money. Ah yes, the overly religious aunt complaining about opposite sex hanging out with each other as they commit the immortal sin, setting trap cards. So, no, unfortunately haven't heard from him since he moved after high school. He went to college and made new friends, I assume. I still play the game as of today. I know people, religious adults, who won't even touch the cards because of the religious stuff in the art. We even have it censored in the US to some extent as well.